We've exhausted our reserves. Israel has bombed Qatar, a key United States Middle Eastern partner. The Middle East is changing quickly, with rising distrust toward the United States, which is unsure how to respond. Let's examine this issue closely and get started. On September 9th, the Israeli military carried out a precision strike on the Hamas leadership in Doha, Qatar. This means Israel attacked Qatar. The Hamas ceasefire negotiation team was attacked during talks on the United States proposal. The attacked area houses many embassies such as Poland, Russia, Greece, Hungary, and the Philippines. If you go just one block down, that's where our country's embassy used to be as well, but Israel attacked this area. However, they didn't even succeed. Hamas escaped the airstrike with Turkey's help, leading to only innocent Qatari citizens losing their lives, an unprecedented situation. This caused global uproar. While Qatar supports Hamas, it is also pro-American and hosts a United States Air Force base. On top of that, since Qatar was the country mediating the ceasefire agreement, the whole world is now criticizing Israel. An airstrike was conducted in the capital of a third country, not even targeting a direct belligerent, an unbelievable situation. As a result, some Arab countries now say they can't trust the United States. After Israel's airstrike on Qatar, Middle Eastern countries are questioning United States security assurances. Many Middle Eastern countries have small militaries and populations, so they depend on the United States for security in exchange for a stable oil supply. But after the attack on Qatar, their views began to shift. The fact that Israel attacked Qatar means that other countries could also become targets at any time. As I explained earlier, Qatar currently has the largest United States airbase in the Middle East and is a country that purchases a variety of American weapons. However, the United States couldn't stop this airstrike. Israel notified the United States in advance about the airstrike, but the United States quickly called Qatar and the strike occurred right after, leaving no time to respond. Additionally, reports say Israel attempted to target Hamas leaders in Turkey, further escalating Middle East tensions. Experts warn this airstrike may heighten crisis in the Middle East and escalate the conflict. Right now, talks are scheduled to take place between Saudi Arabia and Israel to normalize diplomatic relations, but it seems highly likely that this will also fall through. Tensions are escalating as an Israeli airstrike killed a Qatari citizen. So far, whenever calls for a ceasefire rise, Israel responds by attacking nearby Middle Eastern countries and escalating the conflict. This has created a situation where the United States and other Western countries have no choice but to support Israel. Netanyahu often prolongs his political career by escalating crises to conceal them. Israel's actions went beyond airstrikes on Qatar, directly impacting the United States as well. This marked a turning point that destroyed the little trust Arab countries had in the United States. President Trump prominently promoted the Abraham Accords as a key Middle East diplomatic achievement. This agreement normalized relations between Arab countries and Israel, symbolizing Washington's Middle East leadership. However, the airstrike on Qatar has disrupted the agreement. In particular, the anger of the Arab Emirates, which was called the symbol of the Abraham Accords, has put the United States in a difficult position. The Arab Emirates was the most active in pursuing diplomatic normalization with Israel. After the incident, the Abu Dhabi Ministry of Foreign Affairs openly criticized Israel, showing their discomfort. The bombing of Qatar was not just a simple military action, but clearly carried the message that it was a betrayal of the agreement itself. As the situation unfolded like this, the United States was also greatly taken aback. Within Washington, there was a growing sense of crisis that if things continued this way, all trust in the Middle East would collapse. The White House made an unprecedented direct call, warning Israel to stop and saying, "No more, this can't continue." The United States rarely sent messages to Israel in this tone, but distrust toward Qatar remained strongest. The capital was bombed and Jang Gukgun died. This happened in Doha, home to a strong United States military base, so Qatar felt both anger and humiliation. Despite United States troops being stationed here, they couldn't prevent this, leading people to question the purpose of their presence. Qatar's doubts quickly became distrust, forcing the United States to act. President Trump intervened personally, urgently sending Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff. On September 12th, a meeting with the Qatari Prime Minister took place in New York. At the meeting, the United States pledged stronger defense cooperation and gave assurances this wouldn't happen again. President Trump stressed Qatar is a strong ally, but the Qatari side was not quick to agree. The existing rift couldn't be fixed with words alone. The United States needed to act further to rebuild trust. With the United States security guarantee weakening, Middle Eastern countries are now looking for ways to survive independently. Many now feel the days of relying solely on Washington for reassurance are over. But would they instantly launch jets and fire missiles at Israel? Realistically, that was very unlikely. If you examine how Gulf countries are governed, you'll find the answer. Countries like Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, and Kuwait are now using the massive capital they've earned from exporting oil and natural gas to drive their economic ecosystem through trade, investment, and the tourism industry. Their reputation as a stable business hub is their national brand, but direct military involvement would drive away investment, halt tourism, and destroy trust in their financial markets. In short, it would be like tightening their own noose with their own hands. That's why a military response is nearly impossible, but there are plenty of other options available. They use their diplomatic and economic power as weapons. Gulf sovereign wealth funds have already invested massive assets worldwide. What if they suddenly announce plans to withdraw from United States and Israel-related assets? Global financial markets would face an immediate shock, serving as strong pressure on Washington and Tel Aviv. In other words, it's fighting with money, not guns. Another point is Egypt's proposal. President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi recently suggested Arab nations form an Arab version of NATO named the Arab Joint Force. It's not just a loose coalition, but a military alliance with actual operational authority so they can jointly respond to attacks like those from Israel in the future. Reports say Egypt would lead, Saudi Arabia would hold secondary authority, and mercenaries from Morocco or Algeria could be deployed if needed. This isn't the first proposal like this. Similar talks happened in 2014 and 2018, but failed as smaller countries resisted losing military control. But this time, the atmosphere is different because all Arab leaders now feel insecure and can no longer trust the United States. Right now, Egypt's proposal isn't just about military discussions. It's a symbolic message and the first step towards shifting the balance from a United States-centered order to an Arab-led order. It's still unclear if this will happen, since the project is complicated by conflicting national interests. However, the very fact that this proposal has been reignited is important. It's clear evidence that the current in the Middle East is increasingly leaning toward distrust of the United States. In other words, even if no bullets are fired, the situation is already changing. Also, the international community is putting increasing pressure on Israel. On September 12th, the United Nations General Assembly overwhelmingly passed a resolution supporting Israel and Palestine. 142 countries like South Korea, Japan, and European nations supported it, 10 including Israel and the United States opposed. On the 11th, the United Nations Security Council held an emergency meeting to condemn the Doha airstrike as pressure mounts. Israel's airstrike wasn't just for military reasons. Prime Minister Netanyahu's political motives were also involved. Netanyahu is Israel's longest-serving leader and also one of its most controversial figures. He faces corruption charges and coalition conflicts have weakened his leadership. Polls show his approval is unstable, and protests continue. In such cases, he always follows the same pattern. He hides crises by creating bigger ones. The more domestic pressure he faces, the more he exaggerates external threats to distract the public. As the war with Hamas continues and attacks on Gaza intensify, public attention shifts from political scandals to the security crisis. This time, pressure for a ceasefire has grown. With united international pressure, Netanyahu needed a new crisis. The airstrike on Qatar was exactly that card. By precisely striking the capital of a third country, they tried to widen the front and shift the conflict model toward escalation. This method is effective in the short term. When you claim to be fighting against an external attack, internal unity is strengthened. In Israel, as demands to protect national security increased, political criticism of Netanyahu briefly eased. In the long run, this is risky because it erodes international trust and puts allies like the United States in a tough spot. Nevertheless, Netanyahu chose this unreasonable course of action to prolong his political life. In the end, this situation can be seen as both a military operation and the result of political calculations. The situation in the Middle East is rapidly changing right now. What do you think about the current situation? Please let us know in the comments. That concludes this video.